Hi, welcome to this week's topic. We are going to be discussing channeling. What is it? How do we do it? And do you do it for yourself? So we are Peyton, Corey, and myself, Yaila,
Hello.
weekly videos talking about different topics related to energy, strengthening your intuition, and other topics, how energy affects your life. So if this sounds like topics that you are interested in, definitely subscribe to each of our YouTube channels, and you can follow us on social media, all listed below. So we always appreciate your likes, your shares, your comments. The interaction definitely helps us share this information to other people who would also benefit from it. So let's kick things off with Peyton. What would you like to open things up as far as channeling?
Well, thank you, Yaila. This is such an interesting topic because channeling covers such a huge spectrum, and everyone has a little different understanding about what it means, how it works, if they can do it, or if you have to be special to do it. So I'm so glad that we're talking about this so that we can kind of share our perspectives because we all do it a little differently ourselves. So when we are talking about channeling, what do we even mean? Because you will see this term used so many different ways. And so for me, the way I think of channeling is it's really this huge spectrum. Because when we talk about channeling, we're talking about everything from just the ability to be in a state of flow. Whenever you are just in your bliss, doing what you love to do, whether it is singing or dancing or doing art, whenever you lose yourself in the moment, whenever you get out of the monkey mind and you're just feeling the flow, you're in the zone, you are actually in a channeling state. And so all that means is you're connected to your heart. You are in your heart space. You are connected with your higher self, with the divine flow. And that's really all channeling is. So it's something that we all do every single day. Just most of us, first of all, don't realize we're doing it. And second of all, a lot of us don't call it channeling. So when we talk about channeling, in the intuitive community or in the spiritual world, we mean something a little more specific oftentimes. So when I use the word channeling or when I talk about being a channel, what we're talking about is usually someone who has the ability, just through training, we all have the ability to do this, to connect with higher dimensional sources of information. So you may hear channelers who connect with all different types of higher dimensional beings, whether that is your higher self, you can channel your higher self, or whether you are a little more adventurous and channel ET beings or ascended masters. You can even channel angels or dolphins. So when we talk about channeling from an intuitive perspective, we're talking about people who talk to higher consciousness. That's how I think of it when I think of being a channel. And of course, I'm the galactic girl, so I like to talk to the ETs. So I tend to channel Pleiadians, Syrians, sometimes ascended masters. So we're just usually talking about the ability to communicate with different levels of consciousness. And within this world, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, doing it from this more kind of specialized perspective, there's even a huge range of potential within the channeling arena. There are people who are trance channels. And so a lot of us who know some of the more famous channelers out there, like Jane Roberts, who channeled the Seth material decades ago, many of our initial channels were trance channels. So a trance channel is someone who steps out of their consciousness completely to bring in this higher dimensional information, to let people ask questions and get answers from higher consciousness. But we're moving a little away from that in recent years. There's been much more of a trend toward the kind of channeling that I do, which is called conscious channeling. And so the difference between a trance channel and a conscious channel is that the conscious channel is present during the questioning. So when I channel for someone and let them talk to the Pleiadians, I can hear the questions that they're asking and I can hear the answers the Pleiadians are giving. So if you're interested in channeling, if it's something you want to dive into more, just know that there is a huge variety in ways that you can go about doing that. And it'll be really unique to you. Everyone does this in their own personal way. And so there are infinite choices, both of ways to channel and beings that you can channel. And so if this is something that sounds kind of fun to you, that you'd like to explore a little bit, I'll just share a little bit about my process and how I get into the channeling state. So when I'm working with the Pleiadians and channeling them for my clients, the first thing that I do is to set up my energy very carefully. And so what I do is I meditate, I do some breath work, and I do some toning or chanting, which if you followed some of the more famous channels, you've probably seen some of them do something like that, chanting or oming. And what this does is it raises your vibration. Because if you're interested in learning how to channel higher dimensional beings, it all comes down to your vibration. So having a personal practice in place to raise your vibration helps you connect with whatever the being is that you're interested in talking to. So setting up yourself, getting in a really high vibrational space is really important to starting your channeling process. And then the other thing that I do is make sure that I am in a sacred space. So I always protect my energy, and the girls and I have lots of videos on energy protection, setting your space. And these are some great things to take a look at if you want to start to explore channeling yourself. So the most important part of channeling is learning to quiet your mind, because you have to get out of the monkey mind in order to hear the information that's coming through. So that's how I set up for my channeling, but you will probably make this process your own, and there is no right or wrong way to channel. And the most important thing to know about channeling is anyone can do this. If you have an interest in it, you're probably meant to do this at some level of your soul. And so whether that is wanting to channel ascended masters like Yeshua or Buddha, or ETs like me, or even just your higher self, just to get that personal wisdom for yourself, there is really nothing that I have found on the spiritual path that's more satisfying than learning how to channel these higher dimensional energies, because then these energies spill over into your entire life and just really give you the ability to tap into your inner wisdom anytime you need to. So I think that channeling is going through a huge renaissance right now, and it is something that anyone with an interest can do. So that is how I look at channeling. How about you, Corey?
Thank you, Peyton. Wow, I love I always say this, but I love getting together because, that's what's so wonderful about energy work, is that you can always learn something new. And so when we all get together and we start talking, I always learn something new. I love that. So channeling, it's interesting because I never thought of myself as a channeler. And many years ago, I went to a reader, a psychic reader, and I did not tell her anything about myself. And for many, many years, and I still do it from time to time, but for many, many, many years, I was a makeup artist in Hollywood. And, we worked a lot of long hours. And she said to me, when you're doing makeup and, everybody has to do the same makeup, but for some reason, you stand there and you're doing your makeup, doing the makeup, and you're so tired. And then all of a sudden, you just, it's like this flow comes in, and, and then everybody, looks at the makeup and yours just has that little extra bling. And I was like, yeah, yeah. Or, when you've just been, working so long and so hard, but suddenly you get this burst of energy, but it's more like not a hyper energy, but you can just keep going and going. Yeah. She said, well, you brought that in from a past life, and you are channeling your makeup artistry. And I was like, wow. And, I was aware of it as a shift in kind of energy, but I did not realize it was channeling, or that it was coming from a past life, or that I was actually channeling this makeup. Because people would ask me, how do you know? How do you know to do that? I said, I don't know. I just show up and say, hey, who's ever up there, just help a girl out. And that's exactly what would happen. So that's one way of channeling. Another way of channeling is, I can hear my guides, and I have not thus far, doesn't mean that that won't change, but, I too like have, talked to the Pleiades and people who have passed over and given messages. But even for myself, I don't give it a specific name, and it could be my higher self. And I think there are times where I realize it is my higher self, but I just ask and talk to the beings that are in another dimension, and I get those answers. There are certain people that when I'm doing readings, specific entities come through. And I love how you said that, Peyton. It's a flow where, I'm talking and all of a sudden it's this shift of energy where I'm not working on trying to speak, like right now, but no, working on trying to speak, it just starts to flow. And for me, I can either call it in or it just comes in. And that's another way of channeling. So I loved, Peyton, how you said, art or even, other beings that you'd like to channel and give messages to other people, or for yourself even. My one caveat, though, that I must say is, all three of us are really an advocate for education. So even like in the trance channeling, where you literally remove yourself and have that entity come in, and you're able to channel it. As Peyton was talking, that it's from an advanced point of view. I did have a couple students a while back, and they were starting to channel, and suddenly they were, these weird things started to happen. And it was because their vibration wasn't raised high enough, and they were really just like going out in the Wild West. And so we're all advocates for education. So channeling, like me channeling my makeup, or, and being aware of that, and, channeling, that just comes in is one thing. But I just as a caveat, Peyton has been doing it for a long time. And yes, anybody can do it, but it does take education and training to get to the point where actually all of us are. So, but it is so amazing that, just communication, when I love that, Peyton, that flow, that was the perfect way of describing it. When that flow just comes in, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Or, wow, where did that come from? It's a form of channeling. And as you get on the spiritual journey, and it's something that you'd love to venture into, which we all have, Yaila and I were talking earlier, and, we teach for school, and we were talking about, all the things that we learn, and channeling is one of them. And it's so exciting. It really is exciting. And just the awareness of it is, I was just shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what that was? All that time, all those years, I had no idea. And, we get to learn a lot through channeling, when we are the channeler, and going to other dimensions and asking questions. That's what's so wonderful about this energy work, is that you're always learning, and it's never ending in learning new things. So I love channeling, and I think that, well, most of us do it all the time. We just don't know it. So, to get the opportunity to do it and have the awareness and learn how to do it, so exciting. It's really exciting. I love channeling. So how about you, Yaila?
Thank you, ladies. This is such a fun topic. And I was kind of, how Peyton was first describing channeling. When I used to think of channeling, my first interpretation was like Abraham Hicks or Cryon. I had this awareness of these famous people who were calling in, beings. And I put those people up on a pedestal. Like, I could never do that. I don't ever do that. It's all just like they're special. But once I started going through the program and actually learning about energy, I realized, just like you both are saying, we all are channeling energy in different ways. And the way I think about channeling is we are basically an interpreter of the type of energy we're receiving, or the messages that we're receiving, or a translator. You know, we're translating whether it's thought forms that come into our mind, feeling of vibration, images that flash and what those images mean. So we are interpreting or translating energy that we connect with. And through training, understanding your energy and how you actually connect with energy, the more specific you'll realize how much you actually do channel. So as my experience as a teacher, I realized I actually channel during my classes, meaning every single clairvoyant class I've ever taught, or any of the classes or workshops or other things that I've taught, it's, even though the material, the foundation is the same, every single group kind of brings in different messages specifically for them. And when I say brings in messages, when I channel, I'm connecting to my higher self, my higher guidance, sometimes my my spiritual guides that I work with. Other times I'm connecting to the other person's higher self or their guides that they work with, or people who've crossed over that they love. And sometimes I'll get messages, meaning for me, it comes through, I'm very clear cognizant, clear knowing. It comes through as like a thought, like the thought just kind of, and I love that word too, it just flows. The information just kind of comes in. I don't use any effort trying to think or modify what's coming in, because I've learned to trust that the messages coming through have that veil of, I only work with higher guidance. You know, I don't really bring in any lower vibrations. I've learned to protect, you know, Peyton and Corey both saying protecting your energy, learning how to do that. It's number one step before you even want to channel anything. And so the messages, how they send it to me is sometimes I'll get a flash. I'm clairvoyant, so I'll get a flash of an image, almost like looking at a magazine or a movie, and then I'll have that clear knowing of the message, and I just let it flow. I don't monitor. My very first experience with channeling, one of our previous videos on spirit guides, was I was going through a hard time and just decided to journal. And I put the intention to connect to my higher consciousness, my spirit guides that could be watching over me before I even knew what it was. And I just let myself write, again, not monitoring, am I spelling it correctly? You know, am I using the right pronunciation, whatever. I just literally let myself flow, like whatever popped in, I just let it go through. And I was conscious for that, right? I didn't leave my body. I didn't remove my awareness out of my physical space and let something else come in. I was present in my body, and I was just letting these thought forms basically come in. So there are some channelers, like Peyton was saying, that are trance. They remove their consciousness out of their space, and they've learned how to let the other beings or guides kind of speak through them. I personally feel like you really want to have the right training if you're going to let other energies in your space, because you are sovereign in your space. You know, you call the shots on the energy that's in your space and not. And I think the reason why it's shifted from trance channeling to conscious channeling is because we don't have to remove ourselves to let the messages come through if you are clear in your own energy of like, this was my energy, these were my thoughts, and this is a whole new thought form coming in, and you're intentionally connecting with certain energies. It's progressed now, obviously, through the classes where I've called in and wanted to talk to the Pleiades, and I felt their energy of like a different vibration off to the side of me, and they were sending me thought forms and I was speaking it out. So again, they never got into my space, but it was like thought forms and messages and quick guidance that came through. You know, we channeled during energy readings. If we're doing an energy reading or healing for someone, we're channeling from our higher self, the person's higher self, the different guides that we work with, or people who've crossed over. So you're basically just translating or interpreting the energy from whoever, you know, the spirit guides, angels, ascended masters, you know, whatever the beings, wherever they come from. It's a practice learning to, one, protect your space, and two, discern between my thoughts versus other thoughts coming from outside of me, and where are those coming from? Am I intending to get information from them? Like Corey was saying, it is a big deal to learn how to protect your space. I have my clairvoyant teacher. She is one of the people who've been trained to actually remove some of her consciousness, step outside of her body and let the beings come into her space, only up to their throat chakra, to speak through her throat. But she went through a 5-year program to basically learn how to really protect herself to do that. and she was doing a sacred circle basically, and we would go and we'd ask questions, like all these different really cool ascended masters that she'd bring in. And some of the girls who had gone through the school that I teach at now, they were like, oh, well, we can do this too, but they didn't learn the protection. One of the girls was channeling who she thought was an ascended master and wasn't, because she didn't learn proper ways to kind of sift and sort. And it really took a lot of work on the rest of the group to help clear her space. She actually ended up dropping out of the program and going into therapy because she opened herself up to energy that wasn't safe for her. So this is something that you really want to be mindful of. If you're curious about it, you can do it in a very safe way. And just like Corey was saying, and Peyton, definitely get proper training to do it. It's not something you need to put on a pedestal, but you also want to be sure what you feel comfortable in doing, what energies you are truly wanting to connect with, and how do you protect yourself in doing that. So I will kind of throw that little caveat to the side because we want you to be safe if you're playing with these energies, but it can be really fun and you can get beautiful messages. And the way you know you're connecting with, the universe, message, your angel guides or spirit guides that are of higher consciousness, is you feel calm, you feel peaceful. It's always, the language is loving, no matter what the situation is. These ascended beings are going to have an ascended consciousness. They're not going to be in those lower vibrations of guilt, shame, blame, judgment. They always come through, and it always feels really reassuring and peaceful. Even if they're guiding you to make other choices that are more supportive, they're going to share it in a loving way. And so you'll feel supported in the direction you want to go. If you ever feel put off or unsafe or uncomfortable, definitely, ask that energy to leave your space, because it's that's not who you want to be channeling. But it's a flow. You tap into, you all have your own higher guidance. You all have your own connection to different energies around you. And it's your free will and your choice if you want to tap into that to the extent that you do. So that's what I would like to add. Any other things the two of you would like to add as far as channeling goes?
I'll second you, Yaila, on the importance of protecting your space before you do this work. I would never start to channel for clients without taking at least about 20 minutes to set my space. And so I can't second you girls enough how important it is to use your energy tools conscientiously before you start to take this next step. And this is a little bit more advanced work that we're talking about. And so that is not to say anyone can't do it, but absolutely 100% protect your space, because in channeling, you can only connect to a vibration that you can match. And so if you are in a stinky mood or in fear or anger, guess what energy you're going to connect with? If you try to do any sort of energy work from that space, you're going to match that same energy, because you can't connect to something you're not a match to. So as always, this is work that you want to do from what I call sacred space. I always call in the archangels and have a whole ritual to protect my space before I start to channel. And it is really, really important, because you want to be connecting with the highest level guidance possible. And again, like Yaila said, if something doesn't feel good to you, and we talked about this in so many of our videos, in our seniority video, our discernment video, if it doesn't feel good to you, send it away. You are always sovereign. You are always in control. So it's always important to remember that you call the shots. You're the one in the body. So do this work thoughtfully. It's not something you want to do when you're on a crowded train or in a plane or at a bar. So, this is high level work that we're talking about here, and you can absolutely do it. Just do it thoughtfully and with your training and your discernment. So I agree.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I always love your wisdom that we get to share. And thank you so much for watching. Again, if this information was helpful, if you'd like to learn more from either one of us or all of us, feel free to reach out anytime through our information below. And we again appreciate your likes, shares, comments. We will see you next week. Bye.